freak. El alunizaje fue montado, olvídate del espacio exterior.
The live stream of today's show, it's how the horizon works in the flat Earth, because I was looking or seeing a few debates in modern day debate, which is an English channel for debate, of course, and there is a lot of different type of debates, like religious debate or political debate, and also there are cosmological debates. And a few friends of me, like Austin or Jeran or other guys from Globebusters, from time to time, they participate in those debates. And the counterpart, the globe people, the people that are trying to defend the globe, they still argue things about the horizon that, in my opinion, are wrong. And I just want to share my one of my presentations about the horizon, because I believe that could be, just drop some light on the topic. So if I may, I'm going to share my screen very quickly. Okay, and supposedly I am presenting right now. And I have a PowerPoint presentation that I did many times in the past, maybe when I was in the Globebuster live streams, or also in my Spanish channel, but I never did, like from the beginning to the end of, in a continuous way. So I'm gonna try to do that today, and I hope this enlightened you at least with it, with this topic. And thanks so much for all the people that are right now watching this live stream. So the idea is, and this is a word that I cannot pronounce very well, but the idea is to demystifying the horizon. I mean, trying to put things on the table as it is, in my opinion. And the first thing is because when you're trying to find spherical Earth evidence, and you can use Wikipedia just as a universal source, because if you want, when you reach the bottom part of any article, you can see here all the bibliography used for write this article, and they are still evoking in one of the, doesn't matter, Eratosthenes, of course, the lunar eclipses, etc., etc. But one of the most important is this idea of because after all, nobody can go to space and check for yourself. Nobody can go there and experiment in that field, but everybody can experiment or observe this type of phenomena in our world. And the idea here is, at least because they are taking this as a primary source of evidence, which is the boat disappearing in the horizon, the idea is trying to at least comprehend and explain with a different perspective what's going on here, because time to time you hear people that defends the globe model saying that the only way, and that is something that, in my opinion, is a little too much to say, but the only way that this could happen is because the Earth is a sphere. And it doesn't matter if they comprehend that the atmospheric refraction exists, but this is not due to the atmospheric refraction, but this is, in this case, is just because the Earth is a sphere. And even in Wikipedia you can see how they put this type of GIF animations addressing some of the observations made in the past for different people, like the Chicago buildings and other stuff here. But if you keep going or scroll down, you're gonna find a summary of 10 evidence here, And this is someone new, or not someone, sorry, this is a new information that somebody add to this article, because this is not used to be the Lake Pontchartrain Kai's way, which if you take a look and you make your research on YouTube or on the web, you're gonna find a lot of people that went to this place and film in side, on the side, not just in the front, in this deceived perspective, if you want to see in that way, and it's completely flat. So I'm not going to address this now, but just for as a reminder that there is a lot of people that went there and take their own observations. So, like I mentioned before, the first and the most important evidence, at least of for the Academy, is the the ships disappear, the boats disappear in the horizon due to the curvature of the Earth. So that is what the idea to this live stream is, to attack this idea. In fact, if you go to it's very, very at least it's nice to see how they constantly change Wikipedia articles, because, for example, if you go to the empirical evidence for the spherical shape of the Earth, you're gonna find, like right now it says, on a completely flat Earth without obstructions, mountain, hills, valley or volcanoes, the ground itself will never obscure distant objects. This is the first paragraph here, which is completely wrong, because they are not taking into account the phenomena of the atmospheric refraction. But if you just go at the beginning of 2023 year, and for that you can use the Wayback Machine, they used to say that on the flat Earth without obstruction, the ground itself will never obscure distant object. It will be possible to see all the way to the edge of a world. This is the type of insanity that supposedly professional people believe. That not you can see to infinity. If the Earth is flat, you can see to infinity and beyond, of course, right? Because after all, the universe is expanding and is infinite, so there must be something beyond, for a body to expand. You need something that is bigger than the actual body or object, in this case, the universe. But getting back on track, I mean, this is the type of stupidity that some people believe, or some people, trying to deceive other people, in my opinion. So when you go to trying to understand the horizon, it doesn't matter at the beginning, it doesn't matter the shape of the Earth, just trying to understand what we call horizon, which in the spherical model must be a geometric object, and in the flat model it's just an optic, it's an optical phenomena. It's not a geometric phenomena like in the case of the globe Earth. First of all, you need to understand that it's not just hills, mountain, valleys that can obscure objects in the distant horizon, but also if you have something that interact in terms of optics with light and how we perceive the light. The light, quote unquote, the idea of receiving the final image into your eye or lens camera, whatever. And that factor is that we have in our atmosphere is full of water. This is just take of official site website, which is called USGS. And in fact, here is a funny quote or funny text, because if it's like a short diluvian, I don't know how to say in English, if all of the water in the atmosphere raining down at once, it will only cover the globe to a depth of 2.5 centimeters, about 1 inch. It's like a really tiny, I think it's deluge said here in the in the English translator. So what happened in the horizon, what is, at least in my opinion, the important things when you discuss this topic? First of all, you need to present in the ideal situation, you need to present the evidence, which in this case it's out there, is in the nature, and also a control environment, something that you can recreate and control, the variables, in this case in the lab, if you will, and to at least understand what's going on when you are acting between, or through a medium. In this case, it's the air. The air is not empty, it's full of water. The water is going to behave as a lens. So for me, in this case, this little video explained very well, or I mean, at least I hope you can make you understand what's going on. This is a control environment. It's just a tiny replication. Of course, we cannot recreate in the lab 50 kilometers of atmosphere. So at least thank you so much for Kevin Shin in the Rockfin channel, in the Rockfin chat. So this is a device that use heated carbon nanotubes to create a mirage, and the idea here is these nanotubes is going to be hidden, hidden. I don't know how hidden, but heated, and also, it's going to be hidden to our eyes, because it's going to balance the index of refraction with the surrounding water where they are immersed. So here you can see when they start, sending water there, matching the temperature of the surrounding fluid, you can see how disappear, becomes invisible, at least to our eyes, in relation to our perspective or angle of attack. And not just that, but they start disappearing in this manner, in this gradient. To, in this case, let me just use very quickly, I think I have here, not just disappear in some type of random shape, but instead it's disappearing in a very precise way, which is from the bottom to, or from the back to the front. And that is key, because anytime that we see the ships disappearing in the horizon, the ships are going into a visible area, entering into invisible area. So this is the at least the direction of how this this phenomena happens. So again, when they reach and match the complete index of refraction, is going to disappear completely. You're gonna see a few distortions here, and also a few distortion of the water up there. You're gonna see how small ripples start forming, distorting the image, and then they change the temperature, and again it's going to appear again all the nanotubes. So here you have at least an understanding of what's going on. Imagine that this tiny tiny region, it's maybe the equivalent of 30 kilometers, like 20 miles. So when you start compare that, you're gonna find that in nature we experience that behave. For example, here you have a man walks into view from a distance place. Of course, there are not kilometers, depends of the weather and the atmospheric condition you're gonna have, you know, this behave in a short distance, or like in this case in a much long distances. In this case is like a seashore filming buildings where you can see the mirage. This is not floating rocks, of course, this is just a mirror based on, because it's water, but also because it's happening these Fata Morgana effects. You can see here on the zoom, this is not just because it's water, but also because they are behaving in this way. So at least we have something to trying to understand. This is not just clouds that are floating on the horizon line. It's just because you start having, based on the angle of attack, you start having this no resolution. You cannot resolve anymore the small angles that form at that perspective, and you don't have any more resolution. Simply as that. So I think a lot of people in the past show this example, which for me it's very key, because here we have at least information on the time lapse about the temperature, about the winds, about, you know, maybe the time, which is important because you have an actual measurement for the time lapse. Unfortunately, we don't have the pressure on the air, so we don't have the atmospheric pressure, but at least here you can see almost in the full day time lapse how the horizon is going to behave. Some part of the day this land is going to be fully visible, and some part of the day is going to be more up than the were before. You can see here how the horizon compress and expand, and also some part of the day, like for example right now, is going to be almost disappear that part of the land. And if you take the extremes, there's going to be a particular moment where let me just drink my mate. It's going to be a moment where it's completely gone. There is no land there to observe. And not just that, but also the compression and expansion change the horizon line of that water. Not the top of the tree, because in this area it's not so strong the effect of the Fata Morgana or the refraction, but where the horizon meets the sky and the ground meets, there is where is more power or pronounce that effect. So here you can see how the horizon behave. And again, this is not due to any geometrical objects. This is just based pure on optical phenomena. This is not has to do with any curvature after all. In fact, this is a really nice example because this at least is focused in one particular object. In this case is a lighthouse, but not just the lighthouse, it's also the lighthouse and all the rocks where the lighthouse is stand on. And here you can see different conditions of the weather in different hours of the day. And you have, you know, for example, if somebody went in this particular time, maybe he or she is going to believe that, okay, I cannot see the base of the lighthouse because it's behind the curvature of the earth. But if that person just wait 2 hours, that person is gonna see the full lighthouse with all the base, with all the rocks, where the lighthouse is stand on. Okay, so again, this is a very important, at least in my opinion, comparison, because here again you can see how the sieve can be the atmospheric refraction in terms of saying, okay, the only way that this happened is because, you know, the curvature of the Earth is obstructing the, in this case, the lighthouse and all the base. And in fact, I think these observations was made by someone, I cannot remember the name, based on one of the Glover's, I think it was Wolfie 2060 that present this in the sunset. He present this observation and start saying that this is due to the curvature of the Earth, and that is why we cannot see the lighthouse, etc., etc. And well, again, at least if you want to be honest, you need to present not just one picture, but at least a full time lapse, and even in different days, to really say, okay, this is what is going on due to whatever you want to address. But the final conclusion here is this, at least this type of simple observations debunk the idea that there is the only way to explain this is based on the curvature of the Earth. And again, in this time lapse of a boat disappearing the horizon, I stabilize the camera. You're gonna see how this is the actual horizon. Of course, you cannot see anymore because all these refraction properties. But again, if you remember the first video that I show in that tiny fishbowl where the nanotubes were in, here is start disappear in the same orientation, not just bottom to top, but also this part of the ship or the boat is entering in that conditions where here it's everything beyond this angular resolution is going to become invisible. And it's nothing you can do it. It doesn't matter how much or how power you have the lens or the zoom of your camera. The problem is the atmosphere. It's not just the resolution of the camera. In this case, the resolution of the camera is enough to see how this object enter into the extreme Fata Morgana. And again, it's completely disappear. And this part of the mastile, of course, it's reduced in size. It's not taking inclination, but it's reduced in size based or due to perspective. It's not reduced in size because the ship is going down, but it's because it's going away, and you're going to see the mastile, you know, just a little more down than a few moments before. And again, it's enter into the twilight zone. It's enter into the extreme Fata Morgana, and it's going to reach a point where you lose it. Maybe sometimes in the past, a lot of people start looking at this in the open sea and start saying that they see you know, creatures, big creatures and things like that, and that was based a lot of times in this type of observations of distance boats or lighthouse or objects, unknown objects. And because you are looking at floating things, or you know, something like has a big neck like a, you know, a dinosaur, a lot of people start creating stories based on this type of observation. So here again we can see that this is not due to any curvature of the Earth. This is purely optical phenomena that interact with the atmosphere. That is why sometimes in the news we need to address, you know, article like this with the title a ghost ship, because, you know, if you are floating you are a ghost which doesn't have any sense, but people believe that ghost is just, you know, a piece of cloth floating on the above the ground, above the floor. But here we can see that here again the actual horizon is here. This is the actual horizon. So sometimes depends on the condition of the atmosphere, look how much the appearance of the horizon is in terms of the not eye level with the observer. So that is why sometimes you're gonna see or feel like the horizon is a little down than where must to be if the air is flat. But yes, of course, if the air is flat without air or without any optical phenomena. So again, this is a complete proof of this flatness that we are living. And in other control environment, we also can see, at least this is for a French documentary, where they're going to reproduce the Fata Morgana phenomena. And this is again, at least I hope someday some globtar, or how you want to call it, take the time to present this in their model, because this is all based on the flat model, where the camera, which is out of view, it's level with the fishbowl, where it contains water with salt and sugar, and again trying to simulate hundred of kilometers in just a small space. And then they have this platform that you can control the altitude. In this paper it's writing Fata Morgana, but all the three components of this experiment, which was represent the atmosphere, the distant objects, and the observer, it's all aligned in the same plane. So in fact, when this person is going to make this platform go down, you're gonna see how the object disappear, but not based on any abstraction, but just based on the refraction. So let me just show you what I'm talking about, and I hope you are following me with my English. And it's get tiresome hearing talk like children. Yes, I completely agree. I'm talking in the chat with the, at least the last time that I did a live stream in Rock Film was only one person. Right now we are 4. We are growing. So like I mentioned before, when you take this into consideration, you must be understand that in our days, people trying to claim that, for example, with the Canigou, the French mountain, this is what happened based on this idea that the earth has a curvature and the sun, it's down in the horizon and projects the image of this mountain hidden by quite like 500 or 600 meters, something like that. I cannot remember exactly, and it's projecting in this manner, and you are here and you see perfect the Canigou just because this is what's going on. They cannot recreate this in any control environment, in any lab. They cannot do this. It's impossible to recreate because this is not how nature works. Simply as that. So when you transfer this into a lab and start comparing with nature, this is, for example, a video taken in the Arctic, you can see, for example, here you see the invert refraction. This is an inversion, refraction on top, and at the same time here you can recreate, just moving up and down this platform, you can recreate the three phenomena: the actual observation the invert superior mirage and the inverted superior mirage, when the in this case the objects turn into the correct orientation or rotation, but more compressed. So sometimes these three behaviors happen in nature, sometimes don't. Here you have they changed the paper for a small boat, and again you can see how you can recreate the Fata Morgana, which again, compared with nature, we have see the inverted superior mirage with the mountain in the distance, in this case in Finland. Then you can see another, for example, this is a distance of 20 kilometers that we can observe a mountain at the north of Canada. Okay, and here you can recreate based on the experiment or in the lab, based on the observation of the control environment, and you can imitate the nature. So we are waiting for the same type of experiment based on this hypothesis, because this is just drawings. They don't have any other method to present this than drawings, because it's impossible to do in reality. It's simply as that. So again, I'm going to skip a little forward. I hope you are following me. Thank you, Kay, for your words in the Rockfin chat. Here you can see in the different time how that mountain, which is a superior mirage inverted, because the weather is changing, is going to expand and connect with the real object, with the real mountain on the horizon at the same level, of course. And then here you can see how that little piece of land, it's or how this setup it actually works. It's just like a lever where you can move up and down. They make a zoom with the camera trying to imitate this elongated behavior. Here you can see, and then just moving a little bit the platform up or down, you are going to produce different behavior. And here is what I mentioned before. This is just like a like a dolphin, and sometimes people, here you can see how moving up and down you can have all these type of distortions. Okay, like in nature, but always it's in the same level. Okay, you cannot do with this idea. In fact, let me just go a little more deeply. Here you have in the big screen a full screen, a few of the, and remember, this is just from an old documentary from a French television. This is not trying to present the idea of a flat earth or nothing like that. It's just a pure documentary talking about the atmospheric refraction. And in fact, here is said in Spanish, some occasions the mirror or the mirage are confused by UFOs, and that's what happened in our days today. Time to time we read an article that says somebody is filming a supposedly UFO in the horizon, and maybe it's just a light of some big boat going in the distance, and based on Fata Morgana or due to this atmospheric refraction, a lot of people have the feeling that they are seeing a UFO. Thank you to Big Pine Sailing. Can you start over? It's not so much not so much time passed that when I'm start, so the most important thing came now. Again, this is just a full screen, the same examples that I showed before, but in the big screen. Here you can see how they are moving up and down the the platform and how much you can cause in terms of the distortion. So imagine this in the big scale that nature gave us. So here I took this from the Thomas Crown case, which is a movie where we have still have the Twin Towers, and this is just, you know, a simple camera shot, like the camera is on the crane and the crane is moving from top to bottom and is going to reach the face of the actor. But here you can see another example how this small angle of the horizon reacts in terms of the how the observer is in relationship with that horizon line. So here you can see we have floating buildings. Even the Twin Towers, it's floating in the air, you know, along with the other buildings in this skyline. But when the camera starts changing the angle, because it's going down, which means that the angle, you know, imagine that this is the ocean, here are the buildings, you know, the buildings, the camera is up here, okay, this is the angle, the camera. So right now this is the angle of observation, okay, this is the angle of observation. When the camera is going down, the camera is going to be here, so this is the camera. So the angle now is just this tiny angle. So that is why you cannot see forever, it's impossible. So here you can see what I'm talking about, where the camera is going down and start this completely gone. These buildings are completely gone into the Fata Morgana. It's completely gone, disappear completely. The camera keeps going down and, you know, reach the face of the actor. So again, we have another example. I'm biased because this is just taken from a movie. This is not meant to, you know, like the lake portrait crane made by, I think was Red Rhetoric, where he deceived people. So here again I contrast a little bit the video and you can see there. Okay, this is what I tried to explain before. I mean, it's gonna be a moment where the sky and the earth planes meet, and that it's the final resolution that we can do, we can get, and there is not more beyond that. And of course, on top of that, you're going to fight, if you will, with the angular resolution. And here you can see, you know, this is based on angular resolution. Here you can see that the floating boat again is just based on the behavior on the horizon. Okay, this is a video from anti-fog camera, which are installed in docks, in big docks for, you know, big boats that bring merchant ship and things like that. And here, at least from the owner or the company that create these type of cameras, they can see at 30 kilometers boat at the only 1.5 meter of height. So 30 kilometers is much beyond that, where what the spherical earths suppose, okay, to be possible. So you can see not at least there was a guy who trying to make people believe that he can represent what I mentioned before, you know, the idea that an object that is obstructed by the curvature of the earth. And hello Karen, oh, thank you so much for that tip. There was a time where this was a guy who trying to deceive people, saying that he reproduced the idea of of an object that is supposedly obscure behind a curvature and rise up and present into the horizon line to be visible to the observer. And that was a very, at least, hot topic at the moment, maybe 3 years ago. And I did a full video about this in Spanish. Maybe I need to translate again to English. But in short words, what this guy did was a very, very, again, let me just open very quickly. Supposedly, the guy present this video showing that there is a table. The table has this box. The box have this cylinder, and this cylinder has these 3 plastilene with these 3 different colors. Here you can see the long tables, and here is like the button gas represent some cylindrical, quote-unquote, curve object. The first thing is that he not align. He put the camera on purpose from bottom to top. That's the first thing, which is incompatible with what the experiment. In the experiment, you are level. You are completely level. You are not watching the people. A person is not aiming from bottom to top. It's level. That's the first thing. But that has a reason. That has a reason. The second thing is that we don't live under butane gas under 160 Celsius minus Celsius degrees. So we are in standard pressure and condition. This is super cooling liquid that is going to produce like a really, really big sheet of, you know, quote unquote glass, if you want. And he's saying, well, you can see here how that bottom part of the red plastilene it's appear. And again, this is due to, let me trying to explain again. I think I have it here. So I recreate that in computer, and I put, you know, as he proposed, and this black rectangle line, it's an actual solid object that recreates, you know, this is a setup. So let me just show you what's going on. The first thing is, again, this object, it's not down of the curvature of the Earth. That is the first trick, or the second trick that this guy did. He must be put that object. One thing is, the object is at the same level. In fact, it's not at the same level. It's more height than the curvature of the Earth, or the curvature of the cylinder. He must be put this, for example, down here, because what the globe model claims is that you can have an object very down here and rise up. But this is not just level, but the object, this red box, it's more height than the supposedly horizon. So that is the second red alert or red flag. And here I just recreate a variable atmosphere using the redshift. In redshift is the name of the engine, render engine, and I recreate that. And of course I can, you know, base, if you take a look, you can see I prepare this turbulence noise as this supposedly butane gas that he drops into the tank at very, very, very lower temperatures. It's almost like a liquid glass, which is something that we don't live in that environment. but again I can make it appear and disappear based on the index of refraction. But again, this happened because the object, it's already, this is the gas and the index of refraction that I use, that supposedly is the same gas that he used at these conditions. And again, the guy, when he did this, here you can see that this is like putting a glass that is going to reflect. He's just, what I'm trying to say is, this has so much thickness. Let me just reduce the size of my, that it's almost, at least, you can see here, it's almost like here he's putting a glass. It's like he's putting, he's putting like a glass here, and the glass is reflecting an object which it's already on top of the horizon. That is why he put the camera in this angle. But again, this is not what the globe claimed. The globe claimed that this object could be down here, and if you put the light here, which is the sun, is going to interact with the atmosphere and blah blah blah, and this box is going to appear up here. So I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. But again, I want to demystify also this observation made by this deceiver, and a lot of globers use this to saying, well, we can recreate what, again, this is a complete nonsense. Nobody lives in the liquid glass. Again, I recreated, and well, this is my way of experiments, and here you can see what I mentioned before. Everything is on top of the supposedly horizon line. So again, the only that change is the angle of the camera, and I present a few other things related, like the Fresnel behavior, blah blah blah. It doesn't matter. Now, if you put the camera aligned, like in our real world, when you make an observation at distance, of course you're gonna see the object, no doubt, and still you're gonna have the possibility to lose or gain more observation based on the refraction index of the atmosphere. But again, this is the correct way to set up that experiment where everything is aligned. Let me just close very quickly and continues. So again, this was by the great Rob Skiba, just homemade experiments, and after all, these thin glass sheets are for mimic the behavior of the atmosphere. In fact, this is an actual an actual guy in the news trying to explain how the atmosphere behave, and he used just small lens magnifier to represent the atmosphere. So this type of experiments in our case are valid too, because the authority, the academy, the experts, they are using just, and I don't know if you can see it, but this thing here is a magnifier, and he used that to trying to recreate the atmosphere in the long distance. So I did in computer, somebody did in the fishbowl, and others did with nanotubes. Rob Skiba did with this thin glass plastic sheet, and some other guys do with a magnifier. So how many more examples you need to comprehend that the objects are disappearing based on refraction and optic behavior, not a geometrical behavior, in the case of our Earth, of course, right? So here you can test, for example, again, this is from Rob Skiba site, that is, I believe it was testing the globe, and I did another computer simulation where this black box here represents kilometers of atmosphere, and this is an orthographic view of this city skyline, where you can see all the parts. Even I think maybe if I increase the size, maybe you're gonna see better. So here you can see this bottom part of the, all this is the bottom part of that buildings, and in here you are completely losing that bottom part based on the observation through this atmosphere. Again, just for you to, here is the camera, that green thing is the camera, and the buildings are inside here. So all this space are simulating the atmosphere. And I do this because I like computer graphics, and it's a way to simulate at least things. And here you can see, if I move the volume that represents the atmosphere, of course the object, the skyline, in this case all these buildings, are going to disappear, magnify, or getting small, and start cutting, not just in the middle but beyond the middle. But it's all based on how the refractions behave also in a computer graphics. Here you can see in real life with small scale models. Again, here I have another example, and all this is just trying to present different options and different conditions to recreate and present a well-known phenomenon. Okay, here I just present the setup in my computer, and of course I think here is with audio. Let me just play. Okay, I believe that this has audio, but it's not. Here again is the guy of the weather talking about that when you see the Chicago skyline appears, it's all looming. Well, if it's looming, it's not the curvature of the Earth. I think it's here.
So technically speaking, this pic is looming. It's not a mirage, but that's all semantics.
Yeah, it's all semantic, but if that is the case, it's not a curvature of the Earth. And all these buildings must be completely gone. We are talking about 500 meters. 500 meters.
It's all atmospheric refraction.
It's all atmospheric refraction.
Thank you. So let me just recap this video. This is based again showing the sun, and you can see, and this is something that happened in our real life, in our nature, but depends a lot of the conditions, and that is based on thank you to Andrea Sosa for the show Buenos Aires from Colonia, my friend. Yes, of course I have it here. Here you can see that in this setup, the paper that has the sun drawing, or in this case the moon, of course it's going away, but at the same time that it's going away, the moon keeps or retain the size, or almost, of course not completely, because the scale in the table, in the home table, is not the same as nature, but you can see here that the sun, it's moving away, but it's getting bigger, or retain or maintain the size, the angular size. And that is something that we see in our normal observations in terms of the horizon, because you see that sometimes, especially with the moon, when the moon is rising, you can see a really big moon, not just in terms of the color, which is red, but rise moon, let me just see if I have an image. When you are looking at the horizon and the moon is rising, you can see sometimes that the moon is much bigger when it's rising than when you have 90 degrees over your head. And how that's possible? I mean, well, that is atmospheric refraction, but not just atmospheric refraction, but in a specific behavior that I'm going to present in a little bit. So again, let me just show this final part of the video, because I think in this case they are going to, yes, address the idea that the only way that the clouds could be illuminated from bottom is because the sun, it's again crazy, but okay, the sun is here, this is the curvature of the earth, here are the clouds, so the light of the sun is, the rays of the sun is shining the bottom part of the cloud, which is completely possible in the Narnia fantasy world, but it's not the only way to explain why the clouds illuminated from bottom to top. Here, for example, you have a setup where the light is not changing in elevation. At the same time, the light is going away. But if you have a magnifying glass or an atmosphere that acts as a magnifying glass, which deviate the ray lights, or the light rays, sorry, and of course also the floor, which in this case we have ground on the earth, is going to reflect, and the light bounce. And especially not just the light bounce, but remember that clouds are volumetric objects, they are not solid objects. So the lights penetrate and scatter inside the cloud much more than a solid object, of course. But here you can see the same phenomena. The light appears to go down, but it's just going away, and you can start see how this roof, if you want to see, this setup here, is this part here. Okay, this is a flat plastic over these two boxes, and this is the small gap between the table and what represent the bottom of the clouds, and you have the illumination on the bottom part. Okay, like in nature. Of course, the color, the red color, it based on the wavelength, on how behave the light coming into view at the distance, the red shift, the blue shift. But we are not talking, in this case, we are not talking about the color, but we are talking about the possibility to be illuminated from bottom. But this is not just illuminating from bottom in real life. This is just scatter light in this volumetric object, which is the clouds. Okay. Again, let me just skip forward. Here we have a few examples. Let me just see what we have here. Okay, this is just with a candle. Again, not just light, but also fire. Everything that has interaction with the atmospheric refraction is going to appear to go in down and retain the size at the same time is going away. And that it's particular, that phenomena we can see, I think we can see here. It's a phenomena that
this a concave mirror, that is. This
it's in a concave. So remember, we are under quote unquote the dome. So we are in the inner part that we see a concave. So sometimes when we represent the atmosphere, and thank you for the other tip, who was it? Well, I gonna great stuff. It's saying Leland Wheat. Thank you, man. Sometimes when we are, for example, we are here. Okay, my drawing is like Jenan's drawing. This is the Earth, and this is the object. And we imagine like the atmosphere is like a box filled with air. but when think in terms of the atmosphere, it's not just a box with Earth. This is like waves, if you want to see in that way, that is adding one on top of the other, producing the final image is always going to be like this. Okay, so again, here you have
mirror.
Sorry for that lag on the video, but that is due to the size of the PowerPoint, because it's a PowerPoint but filled with all videos and not and only videos. So let me just wait until this start playing. So
It's
again,
concave in the sense you can think of it as a cave. It has like an opening to it, and that's the concavity. This particular mirror has a focal length of 80 centimeters, so between my two fingers here. So parallel rays from infinity would come in and focus at this point, about 80 centimeters away from the mirror. And as we've discussed, the focal point is half of the radius of curvature. So the radius of curvature must therefore be 160 centimeters, about out to here. And I've placed these two erasers here and here at the approximate focal length and radius of curvature, which is twice the focal length.
so what happened when he put himself in these two different distance, again, it's going to, that's the phase, and when he goes away, not just he becomes inverted because the focal length reached the maximum, I don't know how to say, the maximum value, but when he's going away, he's getting more size. And he talks about infinity rays and the focal length, and when this is my way trying to understand the sun, because we don't know what the sun is, of course, that's very difficult, nobody can go there and check for itself. And at the same time, the sun could be a solid thing, I don't know, could be plasma, again, I don't know, but it seems like we are interacting here with the manifestation of the focal length or the focal point of that plasma energy, sun, light, whatever. So for example, if you have this magnifier here representing the atmosphere, the high altitude atmosphere, if you will, and you start sending like a gas, which is gonna be the air and all the stuff that we have in the air. Of course, it's not just oxygen.
This is a giant lens, and I am
It's going to act, the atmosphere is going to act as a lens, and it's going to produce,
using fog to illustrate how the sunlight is focused to a point.
it's going to produce a focal point. And just at that distance and, in this small scale thing. But it's like that in the middle is the sun. So for example, here we have this lamp where we have the actual bulb of the light, but here is a giant, it's a spherical glass, and it's also reflect this actual object, the actual bulb light. But imagine that somebody is living here and don't have the access to the actual light bulb. Is going to see like something is in the middle of the air, moving or going away or whatever the sun does above our heads. Of course, we know the analemma. We all know how the suns move. But this is just for illustrate, this apparent sun or this behavior in the atmosphere and the the focal length, how it's exists in a medium, is project in a medium. I hope it's not so confused with my explanation, but again, and about a parallel rays, that if you have an atmosphere, that act as a lens, you can have with a near object that produce crepuscular rays being transformed into a parallel rays and aim, quote unquote, or seems to aim into infinity.
Interestingly, recreating these parallel rays with a
we recreate the parallel rays with a local omnidirectional light in the home.
Interestingly, recreating these parallel rays with a local light source isn't particularly difficult, as we can just use a lens.
And that is all you need.
You see, when the lens is placed in front of the light at the lens's focal length, it actually collimates the light rays, which means that it makes them parallel. These newly collimated rays now have some of the characteristics of the sun.
Of the sun.
Namely that the light intensity doesn't change because of distance alone.
So
and shadows don't change in size either, which is super interesting to see. Another fascinating result is that anything at the lens's focal point appears to be pinned at infinity and appears the same size no matter whether you're close to it or far away, as we observed in my recent DIY projector project. Anything at the lens's focal point appears to be pinned at infinity and appears the same size no matter whether you're close to it or far away, as we observed in my recent DIY projector project.
So all you need is the correct focal length, an atmosphere that acts as a lens, and the light could be an omnidirectional light, of course, and you have the infinity, you have the parallel rays, and you have not change in size, either the shadow or the actual object. So I hope you, with these two examples, understand a little better what I'm trying to say. And getting back to the atmosphere, again, remember that there is a paper, an actual paper of NASA Astrophysics Data System, that talks about that in this graph you can see that the observer is at 0 degrees, which is here, and on the surface of the flat, between parentheses, of course it's not flat, man. So on the surface of the flat Earth, refraction occurs at the top of the slab of the atmosphere. The dashed line in the extension of the observer line of sight, the angle between it and the ray solid above the atmosphere, is the astronomical refraction. What it means this is that when you go in, you can download it and trying to read for yourself. The whole idea inside of this PDF is trying to understanding the astronomical refraction, because it's not just Earth refraction, but we also need to live with that astronomical refraction. But you are still inside here on the same ground where you observe the boat disappear, and you also observe the sun, but that is astronomical. The boat is Earth observation, and the sun is astronomical observation. So what I'm trying to say is that the problem is that this 20 degrees, I think they talk about 20 degrees, something like that, if I don't, 20 degrees from the 180, of course, only these 20 degrees you cannot take into account, because things there tends to disappear. So what they are talking is that when you are on the ground and you aim your camera or your eyes or whatever into the horizon, the first bottom part where all the Fata Morgana is produced, you cannot take into account. It's something like that, what they are trying to tell you. So again, when you start imagine or represent what this paper talks about, is all the things that we see, and it doesn't matter if the object is near in terms of city skyline or a bike going away or a boat going away, or if it's the sun or the moon or the stars. So again, I just put that dash line in yellow to show you that yes, what is said in this paper is correct. And of course you need to take out the idea of the parentheses between the word flat, because the Earth is flat. But here you can see again the example of the boat, the guy who is riding into infinity and disappear, and the problem is that angle of attack. And in fact here we are 3,000 meters above the sea level. Here you can see the horizon, and if you take a look into the stars, the stars coming into our view, you know, in a so-called smooth fashion until it reach the point or the gradient of atmospherical distortion. And then you have all this zigzag, and even not just zigzag, but also some of the stars completely gone in the travel or in the trip to Narnia. Here you have the sun again behaves and compress, and you know, start entering into that gradient until disappear, of course, based on because it's going away, not because other thing. Of course, again, it's disappear. Here have another example of the boat, and we can go, you know, we can be all the day like this. All right. So here you can also see like this boat appear to be behind this boat, but is in front. And when the other boat intersect, you just see, you know, like, oh, it's a ghost boat. So it's very weird. The horizon, it's very weird. So again, this is the Mount Canigou, the mountain Canigou, and this is the actual Canigou. Not because we have the sun, and no, this is on a flat level ground, and we observe that due to how the sun behave. In this case of the the suns give us the capability to see the silhouette of the Canigou, and all, I mean, this happened the same day, year after year after year. This is not happen all the days in the year, because it's gonna be a point where the sun in his trajectory is going to be like here, and another day is going to be like here. So it's not going to show us the silhouette of all these mountain peaks, because here are not mountains. But there is a particular day of the year, I think it's in the month of September, that the sun go in this direction and give us the magnificent silhouette of all these peaks, like 260 kilometers away at the height of only, I think, 60 meters, something like that. So what I'm trying to say is this. Again, here you have the sun, not just the sun, but look how the sun start to stretch, you know, to expand bottom. It's going to be or suffer that deformation. Now the sun is way down this cloud, but this cloud is still in black. Oh, yeah. Again, and here is a looming example, for example. Here you can see this is the same mountain in the distance in different weather conditions. You're gonna have like the Canigou example or the Manhattan example, where the mountains appear to be floating. No, that is based on the angle of attack. Here you can see the complete mountain, and even not just the complete mountain, but here it's so compressed that we lose this part here, for example. And here you can see like the horizon is around here, and you have a superior inverted mirage. So again, it's all based or due to atmospheric conditions, not based on any geometrical spherical object. Here you have some of the how the frequency works in terms of the light behavior, and this is a nice setup about yeah, about how can you change the height of a light source based on the, let's say, hitting the surrounding fluid. In this case, we're gonna use, it's like a very easy setup where you're gonna have a laser point going in a straight line, of course, and start making, it's like a Michelson-Morley experiment, if you want to see in that way. It's like splitting the light and going in different direction and then recombine. So here they place a screen, and this is the final result of that light, okay, of that initial light. And when he start hitting the quote-unquote atmosphere, that light is going to bend down, for example. And again, I just show this because all that we see here, you can see how, how you, when you interact with the surrounding fluid of where the light is passing through, you can have a lot of things happening, but not due to any curvature or any actual obstruction, solid obstruction. So again, here is the initial light source without hitting the atmosphere around it, and here is the same light that bends down. Okay, let me just keep, and I'm going to finish right away. So again, that also can explain things like we have, for example, a forecast for tropospheric propagation, which is the technical name of Fata Morgana, and you can have, this is based on North America, where you can see, in some places where this tropospheric, because of course this is how you say, this data is used by boats or navigation, of course. And here you can see, this is an old video that I record, but I think they are still online, this type of data. And I like this picture where it shows like a side view where the sun is here and the moon is up here, and well, you have like a little bended dome light, like this thing. Again, light, it's not the same as an image. The light could be bent, but completely different. It's a mountain that appear, or a building that appear. Just remember that little difference. This is based on the stars. So here I recreate like a person living inside of this dome, which I have the camera inside that dome, and I have a few outer side views, and I have the sun just moving in a straight line above this area where the person is inside, and I keep moving the sun without changing altitude, going and going and going. So imagine that you are living inside this personal atmospheric dome. You're gonna see like the sun, it's coming from the horizon to your head at 90 degrees, but the sun never changed altitude. It's all the time was on top of the ground, never went down, never came from down to, okay? So this is the actual sun, and the person living inside here is going to see the sun here, not up here. So that is what happened with our sunsets. Simply as that. Of course, when it's noon, you're gonna have 12 o'clock, you're gonna have your sun above your head, and when it's going away, you're gonna start seeing the compression of the sun sometimes, of course, when it's reaching that area, that the gradient of 20 degrees, but the sun never change the altitude. And the person living inside here is going to see like a sunset until disappear of the horizon, you know, being cut on the middle until disappear. If I take out the lens or the atmosphere, of course I'm gonna see the sun again completely. But unfortunately we live under we breathe air, and you know, earth contains water. And again, let me just very quickly, and again, thank you so much for, we are 13 people watching this and Rockfin, my record. And again, I think I have here, it's like a full screen. Yeah, this is again to compare with this, with the gradient that NASA provide us, a gradient of astronomical observation. And here is another simulation where I create just a flat, almost infinite plane with some trees just for reference. And here is gonna come, you know, the sun without glowing, it's just for a representation. It's going to be again moving always on top of the ground, never went down. It's always parallel to this surface. And because I put an atmospheric condition, you can see the clouds already appear to touch the horizon. And this was made in Cinema 4D, and computers, softwares don't calculate for any atmospheric thing at the, you know, it's all created in the flat infinite plane. They are the computer, the 3D computer software are not compute any spherical world. It's always a flat grid where you start, and you start making your stuff in the infinite flat plane. Of course, 3D software compute orthographic views and also perspective views. This is the perspective view, and I add, based on refraction, I create like an atmosphere. So here you can see how the suns go until disappear, and I leave just a little tiny part of the sun still on top of the horizon, just for show that if you go up right now, you're gonna see again that object, in this case the sun. And that is not because the earth is a sphere, it's because that is how perspective works. So there is still the sun. I don't know if you can see it, but that tiny yellow pixel is still half of the actual shape of the sun. And when I move up, you can now see how that sun start appear again. I never move, I just stop the sun there. And then I'm gonna make a zoom, and not just appear, but it's also on top of the horizon. Now I'm going to make the sun go away again, and it's going to disappear, quote unquote disappear. But I'm going to raise the camera again in this flat infinite plane, and the sun is going to appear again. And that could be always like that into infinity, not because this is a spherical world, but this is how perspective and atmospheric refraction works. So again, this is just a representation of, you know, what's going on in the nature. This is a simulation based on Unreal, for example, where not only they calculate the illumination, but also there are just a circling sun on top of a Gleason map, but they create an atmosphere. So when the camera go into the simulated atmosphere, you can see how the suns behave as in real world. The sun appears to come from the bottom part of that horizon line, even distorted, and then reach the 12 o'clock, and then we have a sunset with the actual sun disappear in the horizon, not due to the curvature of the Earth, but based on how the atmosphere behave. So I think for today I'm going to wrap up now, because I think this first part I plan to do in 2 parts. I have like a lot of slices to present, so I'm gonna remember that we have some observation from stratospheric balloons to 30 kilometers, 36 kilometers, I think is like 24 miles, when we can see, without the intervention of this big atmosphere, the sun with a radial illumination, because here is more pronounced the light, and here is more dim. And this is just a compilation. Here we have, again, sometimes could be this is a chemtrail, unfortunately, and you can use that as a reference of a straight line. And sometimes we have the appearance to be in a circle, because the resulting image obviously is going to be circular, because the lens is convex lens, so the light rays is going to behave in this way, and you're never going to have like a flat lens. It's impossible to create a flat lens. You're always going to have this behavior, and if the atmospheric conditions are ideal, you're going to reach the maximum resolution of the angular size of your camera, and you're going to, or your eyes, and you're going to have the feeling to be in a circle, not in a curve, in the way that some people believe, because they believe that they are living inside on top of the spherical world. So again, when you transform a spherical fisheye lens to a rectilinear lens, it's just based on computer. In the real world doesn't exist. You're going to have all these distortions, but here you can see clearly how perspective is restored. Again, this is a little more examples. Let me check. This is from OptiWiki. It's an official site. There you have some sunset viewing from the eclipse, viewing from the stratospheric balloon. It's amazing. Here is the famous dog cam with a hotspot of the near sun, and here you have a stratospheric balloon with a stratospheric platform, 36 kilometers, 34 kilometers, showing the horizon at the eye level. Remember that in this case the camera it's pointing from top to bottom in the diagonal. That is why you have the horizon line at this height on the actual footage, but here you can see a real live video when all the clouds morphing and changing shapes and real life things. And this is another 36, 34 approximately high altitude stratospheric balloon, showing that of course we are not going to see forever, but it's enough to say that the Earth is flat. So I'm going to cover all the second part of this presentation tomorrow, or maybe on Thursday. I hope you understand a little bit what I'm trying to communicate, and my idea is just to trying to understand a little better how horizon works, and how we can explain a lot of things based on the atmospheric refraction and how the light behave, not just for small objects or medium-sized objects or big objects in big distances, but also with astronomical bodies that of course they are interact with the horizon. So thank you so much, the people in YouTube, for the super chat to Andrea Sosa, and of course thank you so much. 13 people watching live on Rockfin. For me it's a complete record, so thank you so much, and thank you Karen for the tip, and to Leland Witt also for the tip. I hope you you found this content, you know, not important, but something to enrich your experience when you study the flat earth topic. And if you like it, share, give a thumb up, and see you next time in the next live stream here on MPT for All. Thank you so much, and see you soon, guys.